So, for example, growth hormone is the number one thing in terms of developing tendon strength at an accelerated rate that also creates good tendons. So, it's not just that it can drive up to 4x collagen synthesis versus something else. It's the fact that the tendon itself looks really good in the process. And no other compound seems to do it at that rate and that well.
Yeah.
Would I use growth hormone all the time as a climber? No. Between the edema, the water weight, it's definitely an off-season compound that I would drop going into either like peaking for a red point climb or for a competition. It makes sense to drop that off. But in the off-season, it's perfect.
Hey, welcome everyone. This is Gonzo Herrero, your host at the Rise 41 podcast. And today I have the absolute privilege and pleasure of bringing something a little different to our crowd. It's still very much 6 degrees of separation connected to what we do here. And my guest is Adam R. He's the owner and creator of Anabolic Climbing, which is a platform exploring the intersection of climbing, performance enhancement, PED education, training, and recovery. And he's an avid climber, PED enthusiast, and he brings honest, informed conversations about enhanced performance to the climbing community that sorely needs to happen. Adam, welcome.
Gonzo, pleasure, and that's an incredible intro. I am humbled. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing really good. I'm 11 weeks out from maybe doing a show if my wife allows it.
Got it.
I'll explain later. My son
Sure.
is doing it. So doing great, man. Can't complain. Good friends, good life. Doing
Is
what we can.
that your son that climbs is now doing a bodybuilding show, or is that a different son?
Different son. So my oldest, who's Chandler, he's a young man who lives with autism and Down syndrome, and he told me that he and I got in shape kind of together. And he told me last year, one time, I want to do a bodybuilding show. So I reached out to my friends in the community and we made it happen. And that was a crazy experience.
I love that, man.
Thank you. But let's talk about you though. Let's talk about you. So let's start from the beginning. How did Adam end up at a rock wall, probably dozens of feet away from safety on purpose? How did you do that?
So I want to sort of give like the long intro to this one.
Yes,
just
absolutely.
because, sure. So initially I got into my fitness journey in my early 20s in bodybuilding. One of my best friends was a jiu-jitsu guy and was just juiced to the tits, just traps up to here, used to roll with some of the Gracies. He was a monster. And that was how I started lifting and got into bodybuilding that way. And when I had some anxiety, I had issues eating, I just sort of dropped off on fitness. And about a decade later, my best friend was like, hey, I want to get into climbing. I think you'd love it. So I was like, all right, maybe I'll try it out. I got some rental shoes that were garbage and I wasn't sold on the whole climbing thing. And he's like, buy shoes. And I'm like, I don't know if you heard me. I'm like, I'm not into this. He's like, buy shoes. And I bought shoes, got hooked on it ever since. And given the bodybuilding background, I knew I wanted to get on PEDs at some point. And I looked on the internet and there was like one dude from the UK that was doing it and he thought Winstrol was the move. And I'm like, that seems stupid, but surely somebody will document how to do this right. So I climbed for another 6 years waiting for someone to just document how to do PEDs and climb.
Right.
And no one did. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to do this now. And I might as well document the process. And that led me to reaching out to tons of bodybuilding experts. I reached out to Kurt Havens. I reached out to Dr. Todd. I reached out to Colton Lukes and a whole bunch of other folks and started crafting some of my own protocols, inviting folks into my community to share their experiences, read hundreds of studies on tendons and what is good for collagen synthesis, what's good for tendon outcomes, what's bad for it, and made some pretty solid gains as far as finger strength over the past 18 months. And that's kind of the journey up until this point.
So let's set the stage for the normies who don't know a lot about climbing to understand that this is an interesting intersection because yes, as a general rule, you want to be strong as a climber for sure. But bodybuilding, the focus is, of course, on the look rather than, and you achieve that via strength, so from that perspective, it's the same. But also, when you're a climber, it's all about your power to weight ratio. And it's also a highly specialized skill. So how you hold, like you were saying, tendons, ligaments, the way your body moves, way more demanding than bodybuilding. So let's start from there. As you discovered climbing and became more experienced, where do you see that intersection happening and how do you approach it?
Sure. So right now with the modern coaching philosophy within climbing, it's kind of broken up into 3 different training blocks. So in bodybuilding, you sort of have the bulk and the cut, which sort of crescendos essentially into doing a show. For climbers, you'll have hold on a second. I'm spacing out right now. This is okay. So you'll have a performance block, and that's essentially going to be where you're peaking for your climb to do your best. You'll have a strength block so that you can basically get more strength in order to prepare for performance. And those usually start with a capacity. So initially, you're just going to start out with building up your ability to handle volume, translate into that strength, taper off some of the volume so that you could peak, so that you could do essentially maybe some of your best climbs of the year. Because in the same thing with bodybuilding, it's unreasonable to be shredded and looking insane 24/7. It's unreasonable to be able to red point and really just climb at your absolute threshold all year long. So you usually break it up into seasons.
Okay. All right. Awesome. The other thing for people to understand, when we're talking about climbing here, rock climbing, they're different disciplines and they all require a different focus and attention. For example, actually, you're the expert. Like, explain to the folks, like, bouldering versus sport versus speed.
Sure. So just to give a really brief introduction to the audience, bouldering is really hard moves under 20 feet for the most part. Sometimes there are folks that will do really hard moves up to 40 feet, and we call that highballing, and I call them psychopaths, but that's what they do.
Yeah.
Sport climbing is usually 30 feet to 60 feet, or maybe even multi-pitch, where you'll just stack 30-foot blocks on top of each other, and you'll bring the rope up with you. So you'll climb 6 to 12 feet, clip into something, climb 6 to 12 feet, clip into something, and keep going up until you hit the top. And then there's speed climbing, which is the same route that is done. It's about 40 feet, done every single time for the last 20 or 30 years. And if you're hyper autistic, that is the discipline for you.
Yeah. So people have to understand, like, the way that is set up at every gym is identical in every gym throughout the entire world. So
just so you guys know, I'm positive that the most doping happens in that discipline. More on that later.
Yeah.
There's this Chinese kid who's setting the world on fire right now. He briefly held the world record for like a couple months before Sam took it back. He's like 16 and he's able to go 40 feet vertically in around 4.5 seconds. I think it is, I think it was either 4.6 or 4.67. But, you guys are smart folks. Nobody does that at 16 unless you've been taking something to hit peak maturity so that you could beat up on folks that have had more time to accrue that muscle.
Yeah. I mean, even with all the genetics on your side, it's just, there's not enough time at 16 to develop that much muscle efficiently, effectively, let alone train it to do the things we do when we speed climb, which is all muscle memory, basically, because you don't have time to think. You have to do it.
He was sub 5 seconds at age 14.
Jesus,
He's
okay,
just so you know, he's the only person to be sub 5 at age 15. And I think maybe one of 2 to be sub 5 at age 16.
Yeah.
So to be doing that at age 14, I call shenanigans.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah. Oh, another thing that we should mention, just like Adam said about ropes and sport climbing, in bouldering, there are no ropes. This is the reason why Adam says you're psycho if you're doing that at 40 feet, because if you fall off, even with the mats that we carry, because we usually pile them all up, that's dicey. 40 feet is very high up to fall down.
You're basically free soloing.
Yeah, at that point, it's like it's gonna suck. All right, so let's get into it. Let's get into
Sure.
the what. So, what have you learned? Just high level. PEDs. Are there particular compounds that you find better? Uh, Compounds that make more sense. Just go ahead, please. Give me like an intro to your world.
Sure. So I kind of want to split the difference between bodybuilders and climbers here.
Yeah.
So in general, I started really being tendon focused in my research and then branching off from there. And then once I figured out what was good for tendons and then good for climbers, I started to think, okay, what was then good for each discipline? So there are some compounds that I prefer for bouldering, others that I prefer for speed climbing, others that I prefer for big walls and sport climbing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really just about using the right tool for the right job. So, for example, growth hormone is the number one thing in terms of developing tendon strength at an accelerated rate that also creates good tendons. So, it's not just that it can drive up to 4x collagen synthesis versus something else. It's the fact that the tendon itself looks really good in the process. And no other compound seems to do it at that rate and that well.
Yeah.
Would I use growth hormone all the time as a climber? No. Between the edema, the water weight, it's definitely an off-season compound that I would drop going into either like peaking for a red point climb or for a competition. It makes sense to drop that off. But in the off season, it's perfect. Anavar is something that I like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of the folks that find me usually come through Winstrol, where it's like, hey, I took Winstrol, I bumped up a grade and then immediately got injured.
Of course,
And I
because
also
Windsor
crashed
will
my
dry you
endocrine
out.
system.
Yeah.
Yep. Then I
Yeah.
crashed my endocrine system and I'm injured and everything's bad. And
The world sucks.
yep. And like,
But
look, could
makes sense.
Winstrol potentially work? Maybe. Like, there's one of the only steroid failures that I've seen in pro events was for Winstrol. He also took 70th. He did dog shit.
Oof.
But, you know, I don't think it's the right tool for the right job. I think Turinabol I've had good experiences with. Anavar I've had great experiences with. Deca on paper, really, really good for tendons.
Mhm.
It's a viable off-season compound if you can tolerate the mental side effects. I
Mhm.
don't love it. Um, then
Well,
there's
also to your point, it's also wet. It helps you hold water, same as MPP Deca. I mean, different flavors of the same ice cream, but yeah, absolutely. Like on the one side, it can help with that joint, lubrication at a low dose, uh, which is what a lot of people, especially once you get into the 40 plus, they'll add, low dose of that just for that benefit. So
it's not just for the joints; it's also for the tendons. So they've
okay.
actually done tendon biopsies where they've looked at DECA in particular, and it does create basically the tendon is able to be more mechanically demanding and it's just stronger versus its natural counterpart. And the actual collagen deposition is good. A lot of people have read this rodent study where the basically too much collagen is placed on the tendon, therefore it became more brittle. And they misinterpret it in a couple of different ways. Number one, exercise is tendon protective. So
Mhm.
if I just take steroids and sit on the couch, my muscle will grow a little bit. But tendons won't do that. The tendon composition, if you just throw collagen on it, will get worse unless you exercise. And then the tendon looks really good. But when they've done tendon biopsies on steroid users that use DECA, tendons look fine. They don't seem, they don't have collagen dysplasia. They don't have issues with it. They're fine.
Right. Okay. So let's start throwing some ideas around. So
Sure.
generally speaking, if you're new to, and another thing we should talk about is like everything, there's a price to, there's a cost of doing business.
Yep.
So let's make that very clear again for the crowd. If you dabble with AAS, with PEDs, you need to inform yourself. You need to do your blood work, and you need to understand the short and long term effects that you might be making yourself have. So
Preach, brother.
yeah. So and for example, you mentioned rightly for some people, DECA, anxiety issues, mental issues with a lot of the 19 Noors, as a matter of fact. Again, depending dosage, individual response will vary. But baseline, I would think that for most climbers, like you said, the need to have healthy joints and tendons is number one.
Mhm.
Everything is right here.
Yeah.
So,
So in general, I think growth hormone is probably the easiest option available. Deca, if you can tolerate it, is a fine number two. Obviously, testosterone bases are prerequisites if you're going to do this.
yes.
I really do love that you mentioned blood work, though. I post all of my blood work. I posted my calcium scan as well. I believe that, we talk about good style and climbing a lot, and I believe good blood work and good organ health is good style. So I'm trying to impact that or impart that to the climbing community. There's also a lot of folks, because they just live granola, they don't feel the need to get blood work, and that is a massive mistake.
It is.
I have
It is.
seen some unbelievably fucked blood work from
Sure.
natural climbers because of their diet models.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. It's things that they need to learn from the bodybuilding community.
Yeah.
Um,
So, yeah.
Last thing I'll say is Anavar. I've had really good experiences with with the collagen on Anavar. I had this discussion with Chris because what you'll find on Anavar in the literature is collagen spikes, then drops off a cliff. And the way that they use it medically is they'll dose Anavar twice a day so that they can kind of keep the collagen elevated. I try to do that. Also, I'll just use a pre-workout and that's fine. And I assume with the growth hormone that I use, it's good enough. But he said when he was rehabbing an injury, he had more issues with Anavar. So I think with more data through the community, we'll be able to iron that out.
Yeah. That should be interesting. And, again, because of the focus of function over looks. So Anavar, for a lot of us bodybuilders, is an anabolic compound that has a very solid place during contest prep, for example. Keeps you a little strong, gives you neural drive, it has a look. It definitely has a look where it kind of like dries you out and all that. But in your case, like I would assume, I'm making an assumption. Tell me if I'm in the right ballpark here.
Please.
The bodybuilder lives trying to make the weight feel heavier in order to create hypertrophy, in order for muscles to get physically larger, which is probably something you do not want to do. If you're a climber, you would prefer to train for strength. And if you happen to get bigger, that's secondary, I would imagine. Is that
So,
right?
like, yes and no. Here's what I've kind of found, right? You're not going to get huge, even on like if you're taking, or at least when I've been taking up to 350 milligrams of androgens, right?
Mhm.
You're not going to blow up and grow like a bodybuilder eating and training like a climber. That's just not what happens. If you're not pushing food, if you're not lifting with enough volume, like I'll probably do 2 heavy sets on my exercises and maybe do a couple of them. And
Mhm.
yeah, I'm obviously going to put on muscle tissue, but
Right.
I could still make 140 if I needed to. I wouldn't
Yeah.
enjoy it, but I could do it. Um, it's not like you're just all of a sudden going to take 350 milligrams of androgens and look like Ronnie Coleman. And I think most climbers are just afraid that that's going to happen. And
Yeah.
look, you see folks on TRT or even TRT plus. That's not really what happens.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. The total androgenic load, if you're keeping it under, like, say, 300, 500, that's what I guess they call TRT, sports TRT, I guess is the term. The
First cycle
slightly
territory.
enhanced. Yeah. Yeah. It really is. And the thing is that, again, much like we tell our female clients, and I find myself having this conversation with female clients a lot. They're always, "Oh, I don't want to get too big and bulky." It's like, trust me, it's not going to happen unless
Yeah.
you want it to happen. It's not, you're not going to pick up a couple dumbbells and blow up. It's not going to work like that. So, anyway, just an observation, because what you're talking about for a climber, what you're recommending, it sounds to me like it would be considered a very moderate use of PEDs in the bodybuilding community,
Yeah.
because your objective is different.
Mhm.
Okay.
But for what it's worth, though, the acceleration of what you can get strength wise for that in relationship to climbers is really dramatic, right? Like
Mhm.
for me, deadlifting is a thing that I do for fun as like, an incredible strength exercise. But I
Yeah.
was deadlifting 2.5x my body weight within like, I don't know, little over a year of just getting back into it and being on androgens.
It's pretty impressive, actually.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like finger strength wise, I went from doing about 80 pounds per hand on my block pulls on a 20 millimeter edge. I can show you guys if you want in a second. I have one of those things behind me. But I went from pulling about 80 pounds per hand to body weight in a little over a year. And I could just about one arm hang on a 20 mil edge, which, you know, for a 40-year-old in a year and a half is pretty dramatic acceleration.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah. And doing that without finger injury is kind of like the icing on the cake.
Right. And that's why, like we said before, we have a selection of tools in the PD arsenal, and we want to make sure that I would imagine to use the minimum effective dosage to minimize any side effects, understand like we talked about before, the monitoring aspect, how important your diet is, which I think a lot of people, I liked what you said. It's a lot of people that will eat for climbing or in a style that's conducive to that might be leaving gains on the table if they've modified their diet slightly.
So I agree with that 100%. So I kind of accidentally stepped in some drama a couple of weeks ago where there was a climber who's infinitely stronger than I ever aspire to be, right? One of the goats of North America. And the dude basically, to his credit, stopped drinking, stopped smoking weed, took his diet really seriously, and started absolutely bullying some younger climbers on the wall. Like, just looking incredibly strong. Had lat veins, shoulders were popping, like, you're just like, oh, all right, Daniel, I see you. And I'm like, is no one going to think that this dude's looking a little saucy at 37? Like, not even a little. Like, I'm not going to say that he's doing anything, but like, are we just going to ignore what we're seeing with our eyes right now? And
tell me you're in PEDs without telling me you're in PEDs.
And like, for what it's worth, he immediately was like, hey, bro, I am like supernatural and like, I'll take blood work right fucking now. But the entire climbing community lost their fucking mind to me. They're like, how dare you slander this man? I'm like, I think this dude looks so incredible at age 37 that I think he looks saucy. I think this is a compliment. This is not like, by the way, he's not like a tested athlete. He's out of the testing pool. He's just doing this for funsies. He could be juiced to the gills and like, it doesn't affect his ethics one way or the other, right? Like, he's an adult. He's not breaking the law. So how is this an issue? But yeah, they were extraordinarily upset about that. And, you know, I appreciate that he's baller enough to just be like, by the way, fuck you. Here's my blood work. Come at me. Like, that's a fucking huge dick move. I respect that out of Daniel Woods.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, you know, so let me ask you, it's such a debatable point whether, you know, is it quote unquote right or justified to use PEDs for pick your sport? You know, do you have any concerns about people maybe normalizing PED usage and then it becomes like in bodybuilding, the whole like, well, you're enhanced versus natural climbers? Is there any possibility of anything like that, you think?
It's too early. There's like, I've had a lot of kids reach out to me like wanting to get on stuff, which I try to tell them to stick around for longer. This isn't something that you do at 18, 19. No. It's not a thing. I think like, here's the thing. If you're in a competitive scenario, right? Especially if you're tested, that feels icky. I can't vouch for cheating. But, you know, if you're 30 or 40 or however old you are and you're just trying to have the most fun on the wall and feel the best and like push back father time, I respect the fuck out of that.
Yeah, for sure.
What I will say that I've seen from the younger climbers is they're really gravitating toward peptides to avoid some of the HPTA suppression. And some of the stuff that they're coming up with is novel and is effective, which does make me feel a certain way. So what they will do is they will blast the healing compounds, BPC, TB, KPV, and they'll do it leading into a comp or leading into projecting from the anti-inflammatory perspective. So they're coming in feeling super fresh and then they just crush it, which
makes perfect sense. Yeah,
and it's super cool, but I'm like, I hope you don't have any predispositions for cancer. I wouldn't want to run this year round because if you're smashing the anti-inflammatory button, are you minimizing some of the inflammatory signaling for growth?
Yeah, that you need.
But
Right.
It's really interesting that they use that in their peaking protocol or just recovering from like day to day for comp. I find that shit fascinating. And I don't want to encourage it, but I still love the data. So it's a
Yeah.
weird thing.
Well, the other thing with the peptides, like, this is something my crew and I talk about all the time. I've yet to hear somebody like ODing on peptides. I haven't seen anything like that, whereas so I can see the appeal of the peptide seen as a safer alternative. It
Maybe.
doesn't
We don't
require,
know. Like, we don't know,
as far
man.
as we know, fair enough. That's fair enough, so.
I will say I've seen some wild stuff in the community. I have one guy that's mega dosing SLU right now at around 2 grams a day.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I thought my 20 milligrams was like aggressive, but apparently I'm just hanging out in the kiddie pool over here.
Yeah. There's some people that have done a lot. The Gorilla Chemist, for example, did the whole mega dosing thing, which is very interesting. And Vigor Steve has done his part too, when it comes to that, that dude's an authority for sure. So 2 grams of SLU. So did we get extreme weight loss? What was the overall?
Lost weight, good cardio output. So one of the things that I think rock climbers sleep on the most is some of the cardio boosters. So especially for sport climbing, for big walling, it makes all the sense in the world to take something like SLU, meldonium.
Mm-hmm.
I actually talked to Chris Primo, and he basically said there's an FDA approved cardarine version, Seldalapar, I think it is. I'll look it up. I'll look it up in a little bit. But yeah, it's nice to know that there is an FDA approved non-cancerous PPAR compound that it's still WADA banned because all PPARs are, but it makes so much sense to just have more oxygen, to have more energy to drive move per move. Yeah. And, climbers don't even think that way. They start at like, oh, EPO might make sense. And like, sure, maybe. But then you go in like an autistic rabbit hole like I do, where it's like, oh, would EPO be good for alpine climbing? And then it's like, oh, they tried it and it didn't really have any impact as far as acclimatization. So it's like, oh, that's weird. But at the same time, tadalafil and sildenafil work really well for that, which I found awesome.
Yeah. Talk about like unexpected benefits, right?
Honestly, that's the compound that I'm really trying to push to climbers right now because it's FDA approved, like low risk, high reward. You can drive so much more blood flow to the fingers to get more nutrient delivery. Mm-hmm. Also, they've done rodent studies where it accelerated wound healing. So they cut a tendon, gave sildenafil to rats, and had better mechanical tension and accelerated rates of healing off of that. And yeah.
Now that's interesting. I did not know that. So thanks for sharing. For sure.
I sent that over to an IFBB pro that I was in a class with that is recovering from, I think it's a pec tear or a bicep tear. It's a bummer, but gonna try to get him healed up ASAP. So
yeah. Have you played around with SS31 yet?
Not yet. It's on my list of things to check out.
Okay, so I can tell you, I did it at a 3-month block at 3 milligrams, was it? Somewhere around there, 2 or 3 milligrams, I want to say. I have to go back and check my notes, but it definitely was. I saw an improvement in mitochondrial efficiency and output immediately, and my blood work, interestingly enough, reflected an improvement. Now, could it be because I was off contest prep and starting to grow and repair? Maybe. But I will tell you this, the experience seemed to point that SS31, there's something there. There's definitely something there to improve mitochondria or heal. I guess it was explained to me by Vigor Steve as kind of like making sure that engine is in tip-top shape before you fire it off. And then your optimizers, your SLU, etc., will lay on top of that, right? It'll make it even more efficient. So
have you had any cardio scans or any heart scans since doing some of the peptides or anything like that?
I have. My calcium score came back as a 3, which is incredible considering the fact that I was super obese for years, for decades, and smoked like a chimney. I was very fortunate that's all that's happened so far. So yeah.
Can't wait to hear you come down to a 0, man.
Well, let's see.
I'm cheering for it.
Yeah, I would love to. Let's see if we another thing is, I don't know if you know this since we recently met, but I only have one kidney. So another thing that SS31 is known for is for being kidney protective. So even more reason to get on it. So
I will put that on the list.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I do want to mention really briefly is a funny story. I was doing my EKG and my calcium scan just to make sure that everything's okay. And the doctor's like, and I've played around with a couple of research chemicals at this point. And doctor's like, hey, if we send you home, you're good. And if not, we're going to have a talk. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, go home. And I'm like, great. And then I'm cooking breakfast. And then he calls me and I'm like, why the fuck are you calling me? I'm not.
That freaks you out.
Oh my God. Suddenly every weird pin you've ever had starts going through your head.
That's right.
And, I see the cardiologist. He's like, hey, you have like a J pattern, which is not uncommon in athletes. Don't trip about it. And I'm hanging out with the sonographer and I'm just like, hey, so like, how we doing? And she's like, I try not to say it till the end. I'm like, I need you to tell me. I can't deal with this right now. And she's like, have you considered modeling? Your heart looks beautiful. And I am just like, oh.
That's all you want to hear.
Wave of Xanax just washes over you at that point. Just the emotional acceleration is huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've gotten a little more conservative in some of my compound selections since that moment.
No, for sure.
Again, beautiful heart, calcium score of 0 is great, but that'll put some gray hair in my beard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. It's Father Time does his thing. No matter what. Now we can choose how we face that. And, there are no guarantees,
Yeah.
The fact that you and we can eat super healthy. I do my morning fasted cardio every day, take care of it. But I could get a blood clot or a heart attack, like just because of my age, like at 55, as you grow older, that risk slowly increases. So all we can do is hedge our bets, as best we can, and make good decisions with the tools we have at our disposal.
Be as responsible as we can, or be responsibly irresponsible.
Yeah. Or understand, like my coach, Big Paul Barnett, has this saying that he likes to say is that understand that doing blood work and being safe, it's kind of like wearing a helmet during a motorcycle race. You're still racing a motorcycle.
Yep. You
have some protection, but there's no way to tell. You could still wipe out and you could still crash. But if you do, at least you have some measure of protection. Very loose analogy, but I like it because it gives you a good reason to make the good choices while still acknowledging the fact that we are taking part in something that's potentially risky.
Yeah, 100%. I will say, just bringing that back to the climbing community, and this being one of the best lessons that we've had from the bodybuilding community, I do think, or I call climbing like the jungle gym for big kids, because it is. Like, it's literally our playground. But a lot of us kind of act like children, and we just assume that because we're climbing and because we look healthy, that everything under the hood is fine. Right. And I shill blood work all day, every day, with zero concerns about it, just because I know I'm going to catch, like, I've been responsible for probably around 80 different rounds of labs since starting a very small channel. And I'm fucking over the moon for that, man. Like lives have been saved, lives have been improved.
Yep.
And again, we stand on the shoulders of giants. In the case of like bodybuilders, very, very large shoulders. And, we appreciate you guys looking out for us downstream.
Thank you.
Yeah.
By the way, it still trips me out to hear myself as a member of the bodybuilding community, because I've only been doing this for a few years.
Sure.
But it's true. It's so funny how that messes with your head, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please.
Well, I mean, all I was going to say is, like, it's, when people come up to you like, dude, you're huge or whatever, you're like, really? It's just how we are,
I get that. And look, before I was a climber, I was a bodybuilding fan. I went to the Olympia when Victor Martinez got robbed, and then I was there when Dexter took it home, which was insane.
Yeah.
And if you would have told that like early 20s kid that later he would be doing like bodybuilding podcasts while rock climbing, I would look at you really funny. Like that just doesn't seem like it makes sense on paper. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like 20-something-year-old me saw me today, he'd be like, dang.
Yeah.
That came out okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, now back to the rock climbing thing.
Mhm.
So we've discussed a few of the compound choices. Any thoughts on, say, specific compounds like, EQ? Let's talk about EQ. Let's talk about trend.
So we have to talk about EQ first, because
Yes.
this was a misconception that I am trying to clean up. So everyone in the bodybuilding community is like, oh, EQ drives collagen. EQ drives collagen. Fucking show me the study. I have reached out to experts who have made this claim that have not been able to find the study. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I have yet to see a rodent study, a horse study, a rabbit study. And if someone can produce it, I will back the fuck off on this. But I have not seen any data whatsoever that shows that equipoise drives collagen. It is just, I see myths and bro science lore and Reddit posts, but I have yet to see any data. And this thing has just been propagated in the bodybuilding community for decades. So if I can clear up that misconception, EQ does not drive collagen. If somebody can show me the study, I will gladly change my opinion and shut my mouth. But I have talked to the guys that have made those videos, and they're like, oh shit, I guess it doesn't. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, and if you want to dive deep into the subject for the watchers, our friend Molecular has an incredible breakdown of EQ. It's a very long video, but it's very detailed, very specific, and I urge everyone to watch it, because I, for one, will never touch EQ after watching that.
You know what Molecular didn't say EQ drives?
What?
Collagen.
Right. That's right. That's right. That's true. He did not say that because there's no evidence for it, as far as we know.
Yeah, so that's actually how the two of us started talking, which was super cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
I was like, does it drive collagen? He's like, and I'm like, fucking knew it. So
what about something like trend, though? Would you see a scenario as a climber for trend?
So the answer is yes and no. So I have a lot of different feelings on trend, right? Part of it is because I'm 40 and married. I think if I was 20 and single, I would feel very differently about low dose trend.
Yes.
So the best thing about trend is its ability to hold on to muscle in a deficit and also drive aggression. So my question to climbers is, are there other compounds that can accomplish this as much? Like, we're not playing a beauty contest, right?
Right.
If I were to maybe take another 50 milligrams or 100 milligrams of test, or raise my mast, or raise my primo, or whatever it is it meaningfully going to be that much different in terms of how much muscle I will hold than trend? That's the first question I pose to climbers. The second question is around the neurotoxicity, right?
Yes.
You know, if you're a boulderer and you just want to like go climb short pebbles, do your thing. You're not really hurting anybody. But if you're a sport climber, or you climb with a partner and you're going to be more dickish to your partner, that's a bad call.
I hadn't even thought about that.
And, especially
if he's belaying you and being not paying attention, or being all hyped up, or annoyed and angry. Oof. And he's got literally your life in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
Literally.
And then think about the other part, right? You've got to hike in, hike out.
Yeah.
If there's so many opportunities for where you being more short-tempered and thinking that like you're right and everyone else is an idiot could fuck up your climbing relationship in a very meaningful way.
Yeah.
One of the other things is like, okay, it can drive aggression. Cool. So does everything else. Like, are you going to tell me that it's better? Like, how much better by percentage is trend than Trenbolone? How much by percentage is that versus Anavar, or versus like Halo or Superdrol, if you want to go really
super
fucking
crazy?
Yeah. Like, does trend really need to be used? Or are there other tools that are just as good? Maybe not milligram for milligram, but if you're going from like 350 to 450 or 500 milligrams for a week or two, who gives a shit? It's around here. So look, Do I think trend could have a place? Yeah, totally. I had somebody talk about, in the same way that BPC 157 increases growth hormone expression at the fibroblast level in the tendons, that trend might be able to do that too.
Interesting.
Maybe.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, you could sell me on that, but not enough to take it. And I'd still want to see it repeated as opposed to just like a rodent study. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a so Molecular is working on his trend video.
I'm
So,
going to ask him about this if that's the case.
absolutely. Absolutely, because it's valid. It's valid. And I love how you brought in the see, you have the climber mindset. I wouldn't have even thought of the psychological effects of trend as being a huge factor for climbing or as a belaying partner, say.
And the flip side is like, let's say you're a free solo person, right? And you're young and you don't give a fuck and you're pinning trend. Could your judgment be clouded and you take a solo that's more ambitious?
Yep. And then, yep.
Like, obviously you never want, or just maybe you feel a little more bold on something that is protected, but just poorly protected, and you think you've got it when you don't. Having good decision-making as a climber is super important. And, you know, I know that that's kind of ridiculous to say in a population that loves drinking and smoking weed and doing shrooms. But like, you know.
But you're doing that, weed and so on, you'll slow down, you'll be, if you're high. I don't know if I don't think that I would enjoy climbing under the influence like that. Maybe afterwards to celebrate once you make it,
Sending beers are a real thing. So when I was newer to climbing before I got sober, I would climb stoned a lot and my coordination would be off. I never moved really well on the wall with it. But, some climbers love to climb high and like, cool, that's your choice.
Yeah. Yeah, and some people just enjoy the actual climbing experience, even if they're not setting a record or trying to like outdo themselves that day. Just rec climbing for fun. Something 1 or 2 grades below what's a challenge for you.
It's so fun, man. I could see myself transitioning into like away from bouldering into traditional climbing when I'm ready to step back and just do like long, easy routes, and that's just a fun day out. Like that seems like a good time.
Yeah. And one other thing, like you mentioned turning 40, growth hormone specifically, I feel like the reason there's like Tom Brady is growth hormone. There's no way that dude could have done that without a little assistance there. Not in his 40s.
So, so one other thing on growth hormone while there's still time. So if you guys aren't familiar, there's a thing called crack climbing where you'll basically put your hand into a space and then drive your thumb down to fill the space, and then you could hang. And you could do that with a fist or stacking hands, stuff like that. And one of the climbing goats from the UK talked about bigger hands are helpful for off-width cracks or something bigger than your fist. And I'm like, cool, just fucking ramp the growth hormone, ramp the edema, grow your hands 10 to 15% and run that shit. Yeah.
But then you're fighting that extra water weight you're bringing with you, though.
Yeah, sure. But if you can get a better constriction point, then it's better, right?
Sure.
I'd rather feel more stable for like an extra 3 or 4 pounds.
Yeah, that's true. And the other thing with growth hormone, too, is that it is bioidentical, which means that, to me, at least, your body is far more likely to know how to use it properly, versus, a synthetic, steroid or PD that might not be exactly the same. So, yeah, that's why I agree with you in the whole, like, to me, the basis is making sure you at least have your testosterone in place, and if necessary, and especially as we age, your growth hormone, to at least have it at a stable maintenance level. So
also, I appreciate you putting me on game to the early morning growth hormone administration versus late. I have the same. I deal with the same thing where I have trouble sleeping on it.
Yeah, it's rare, but it happens. I've had more than one person like mention that, and thankfully I'm glad I helped you, because it was driving me crazy when I first started. Like, why am I like not sleeping when everyone tells me it's supposed to be the best thing ever? But I guess there's some of us that don't have that in our genetic makeup, the way it works.
Yeah, and it's all about figuring out tools that work for you now. Like,
Yes.
it needs to work now and it needs to work for you. And, there are certain tools that I don't use all the time, depending on what phase of climbing I'm in. There are certain tools that I might put behind just because of like ages and stages. Like, I don't smoke weed anymore. And
Yeah.
that's,
Same.
I need to be, I need to be more focused on work. So that's why test and master just better for me. But, it's just about figuring out what works for you and what works for you right now.
Right. Absolutely. And again, always understand the gives and the takes, the pluses and the minuses, and figure out how that equation works for you,
Which is exactly why I'm anti-trend.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I can see it does what it does incredibly well and better than any other PED for what it does. But it also has a very unique set of side effects, as we've discussed, that it does really, really well that the other ones do not. So, again, it's can you take it? Should you take it? Yeah. At the end, it's a decision we all have to make for ourselves.
100%.
So, all right. So what's next for you? What is your plan? What do you see yourself in a couple of years? What are we doing, Adam?
Sure. So the short-term plan is there's a V11 in France that hopefully is not on fire anymore. There was a fire in the forest of Fontainebleau, and I really want to send Rainbow Rocket. So in the next year to year and a half, that's what I'm trying to work on. There's also a deadlifting state record that is really low in the state of California in my age and weight bracket that I'm going to try to steal.
Okay.
So my buddy and I are going to get together. I'm going to do a proper bulk. I'm going to get up to around 165 and try to pull 500. And that just seems like
train
fun
like a power lifter is what you're doing here.
Like still climbing, but do like a powerlifting block for a bit, which is going to be super fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, over the next, 1 to 5 years, really just continuing to spread education around PEDs and health and dieting and training to the climbing community and try to level us up, because as a community, we're having the discussion of like, is creatine good? Yes.
Still?
Yeah, dude, it's ridiculous. We're such
there's nothing more studied than creatine in the world.
It's so insane to me, man. It's just like, does it work? Yes. Next question. So really just try to clear up a lot of the misconceptions around collagen proteins, around what drives collagen synthesis, good health practices, whether you're natty or not. And, at some point or another, a new threshold is going to be broken by a climber on PEDs. And if I, in some small way, can contribute to that, that would be fucking incredible. That would be come true.
I like it. I like it a lot, actually. So where can people, if they want to work with you, or what services do you offer? Is there anything like that that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, of course. So you can book a consult at anabolicclimbing.com or reach out to me on either anabolicclimbing or anabolicclimbing@gmail.com or at my Instagram at anabolicclimbing. I continue to make YouTube content. I'm really active on IG as well. And yeah, if you need help with Bloodwork reviews, structuring protocols for climbers, training advice, nutrition to help diet or to bulk, I could help you on all of it.
That's awesome. And I'll make sure to put all that information in the notes for this episode when it goes live, so that people can contact you. So guys, check by the comments in the description. You'll have all of Adam's info.
Really appreciate you, Gonzo.
So, absolutely, man. So, in any case, I mean, that's all I had. And Adam, again, thank you so much for taking time to spend on our little humble podcast. And hopefully we can get some people interested in rock climbing, which is an amazing sport. And I want to say to those of you who haven't tried it, it's a great sport in the sense that it builds a sense of community. It can be enjoyed with your friends and family. And it is very much a sport that can be as difficult or as easy as you want to make it. So it's a great excuse to go out with your family and friends into the outdoors and enjoy a beautiful day outside.
Really quick on that. It's a jungle gym for big kids, and you hit the nail on the head, right? When we're in the gym and we're lifting weights, it's like, I'm looking in the mirror, I'm like trying to figure out who's using my stuff. But, when you're on a hike, looking at a sunset, hanging out with your buddy or your wife or girlfriend or whomever, It's just an incredible way to connect. And, when you're on your way walking to a climb, you have nothing to do but talk and get to know each other. So it's such a great shortcut to community. I highly recommend it. And
It really is.
If anyone wants to climb with me, you guys are always welcome.
Sounds good. Now, are you located out of California, correct? Okay. I haven't been there in a while, but if I ever do, I'll definitely let you know.
You were letting me know about some climbs around your neck of the woods. I might have to hit you up. Yeah.
Let me know. Let me know if you're coming this way, because we do have Horseman's 40, which is like, my understanding, it's like the only other place in the world that's similar to Fontainebleau. So
we'll connect on when the season is for that. I would love to get out there.
Absolutely. You got an open invitation, my friend. Anytime. Just let me know.
Appreciate you.
All right, my man. Well, guys, if you got some value out of this and hopefully some curiosity to learn about climbing and rock climbing and bouldering and all of this fun stuff, hit like, subscribe, do all the things, and read the information for Adam and Anabolic Climbing, and start your own adventure, man. It's never hard. Really, honestly, a pair of shoes, the climbing shoes, no big deal, and you're on your way. All right, man. Well, thanks again, and we are out. Have a great evening, everybody. And that should do it.